Hi class, we're back for part 3 of our chapter 1 on scientific understanding. So I'd like for us to begin by talking about the difference between basic and applied research. So I'd like to first go through and have us watch a quick little YouTube video that outlines these differences. The link to this can also be found in your PowerPoint.
Human beings like to categorize things. We don't like amorphous groupings of ideas floating around. It just makes things difficult to comprehend. I'm not going to shock anyone when I say that one thing that is divided into categories is research. One way to make research topics more manageable is dividing the topics by asking the question, what will this be used for? Applied research is one type of research that is used to answer a specific question that has direct applications to the world. This is the type of research that solves a problem. We will look at an example later. Basic research is another type of research, and it is driven purely by curiosity and a desire to expand our knowledge. This type of research tends not to be directly applicable to the real world in a direct way, but enhances our understanding of the world around us. So the real difference between the two types of research is what they will be used for. Will the research be used to help us understand a real-world problem and solve it, or will the research further our general information? As mentioned before, applied research is something that we can use. Here is a simple question. How should a student study? There are many ways to go about answering this question, and the ones we will look at have a direct and applicable finding. For example, what can research tell us about how a student studies? Most people like to study in their bedroom, laying on their bed in some weird posture. They collect all their notes and spread them haphazardly across the bed. Just reading is boring, so they may have the radio on. Some people have both the radio and the television on. Then people have to talk to their friends, so their phone isn't far off. And pets are usually somewhere in the paperwork. However, research has found that a quiet room without music, animals, or television improves concentration. Sitting like you will take the test creates a state of consciousness similar to taking the test. And instead of taking all the notes and trying to cram before the test, it should be spaced out. When proper study habits are applied, they can increase scores on tests and allow a person to retain the information longer. In other words, we researched the best way to study and will now apply our findings. This is applied research. We have an idea of what applied research does, but how does basic research fit into the broader world of research? If it costs money, time, and other precious resources but does not have a direct application, then why bother? Because basic research feeds applied research, and applied research feeds basic research. Basic research is a little less direct than applied research, so we will look at two different examples. The first basic research example is a common type, evaluation. For example, program evaluation is a meticulous look at the benefits, costs, and outcomes of a program. Let's say we are program evaluators at a substance abuse rehabilitation facility, or rehab, and we want to know if they are rehabilitating substance abusers. We as evaluators might look into how many people relapse, how many people successfully complete the program, are the funds being divided and utilized properly, and what changes could be made to improve the success rate. The answer to these questions are not applicable to anything, but act as a catalyst for future applied research for the rehab facility. For instance, the last question requires additional research be conducted, and this question is an applied research question. Again, the two types of research feed into one another. In this case, basic research fed the need for applied research. The second basic research example deals with the broad research topic of reaction speeds. Does it help to know the speed at which a neuron fires, or the time it takes for your brain to react, or what kind of stimuli can make your brain react? The information is not helpful unless you are using basic research as information or inspiration. Knowing how fast a nerve fires can help you measure the effects of certain diseases of the brain, like Lou Gehrig's or Parkinson's. Knowing how long it takes a brain to make a decision is instrumental to understanding the shoot or no-shoot decisions police officers have to make. And knowing what type of stimuli can cause a brain to react might help researchers create a better smoke alarm or harmless riot suppression device. Applied research is research that seeks to answer a question in the real world and to solve a problem. Basic research is research that fills in the knowledge we don't have. It tries to learn things that aren't always directly applicable or useful immediately. Both types of research feed into one another, and one research provides information for the other type.
Right.
Human beings like to categorize.
So let's go ahead and revisit this a little bit in our PowerPoint notes for this chapter. Now, your textbook goes into much greater detail regarding this, but I at least wanted to introduce the topic to you so that way you can kind of hear it multiple times, or at least experience a topic a few times. So going back, basic research attempts to answer fundamental questions about the nature of behavior. Okay? A lot of universities engage in basic research. We're asking a question and we want to know the answer to that question. We're just interested in a topic. Applied research then is conducted to address issues in which there is a practical problem and a potential solution. So as you saw in the video, that program evaluation, right? That is the application. That would be an applied research. Very often, we see this type of research actually conducted in industry. So perhaps they're testing out a product. They want to see its uses, how it, if it's working, if it's providing those solutions that they were hoping for. So this would be that applied research. So going back and comparing, what are the differences? Well, neither of these are superior to the other. We need both. And I think your video really addresses this. We need basic research. Basic research fuels applied research, right? So we need both types of research to occur. And so kind of thinking about this, each has a very special place in research. Applied research is often guided by theories and findings of basic research, as we talked about. And we might need to then use, from that applied setting, modifications that then influence our theory and that further allow us or spur that basic research to continue. We also see that basic research is essential for things like public policy. We have to have an understanding of a event, right, or of kind of this construct that we need to take a look at. So both our basic and our applied research are important. They serve very specific purposes, but again, neither is superior to the other. They actually influence one another. So I'd like to leave you with one last idea, and this is kind of talking about publication. So very frequently when you are taking a look at research and evaluating whether or not that research is good research, you will be asked by your faculty members to look at peer-reviewed research. And this means, when I want to submit a research article, a research study, I then submit it to a journal. That journal then sends my study out to other scholars in the field who are experts in a similar topic. They then review your publication and determine whether or not it should be published. We'll go into this in a little bit greater detail a little bit later in the chapters, but just know that it's actually exceedingly difficult to get your research published. In fact, you will never get anything back that is accepted after your first try. even if it gets sent out to a reviewer, your reviewer will come back with edits. And this is what makes research so strong and the peer-reviewed process so important, that it's not just a person in their backyard doing research, that this is a person who has expertise in a field and has created thoughtfully the research study and collected that data and done the analyses, and then an outside body, not at all affiliated with this person, has no stake in the game, can then look through that research and determine whether or not that it was done appropriately, if it's really going to influence and impact the field, so on and so forth. So when we think about publications, there is a really high pressure for faculty and academia to publish. In fact, for your faculty, they are reviewed significantly on their contributions to the field. And so if you are not publishing, you are not doing a portion of your job, and that can really influence whether or not you'll be able to keep that job. So there seems to be a lot of pressure kind of surrounding this publication. So there was a person who did this research study, and in it he talked about how you can convince somebody to change their mind on a divisive issue in just 22 minutes. In his research studies, he actually went around, he had trained research assistants, they went around door to door, and typically when you meet somebody and you talk about abortion, people are, they have very strong feelings associated with it. So they had gone around, they had different people go to these homes, and in the research study, they talked about how they would have women who would talk about their experiences with having an abortion, the struggles that they had coming up with that decision, how they were very fearful of their family's views of them and their relationship and how it changed. And it really humanized this very complicated and very divisive issue. And this just picked up like wildfire. NPR picked up this story. You may have even heard it on there. It was published in Science. It was just, a big, big, big deal. In fact, the author of this study was a postdoctoral fellow and ended up getting a job at an Ivy League, very much believed to be based on the research that he had done in this study, and also because, of the work that could be done. So this is very groundbreaking. And so part of what we do in psychology, in science, is replication. So if I conduct a research study, you shouldn't just buy it because I did it. You'll have other scholars in the field replicating your research work. And people started replicating their research and they weren't finding the same results. So they asked, hey, can I take